philosophy and like how to find like collaborators is I'm always like a fan first and then a collaborator second, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Hey, so in my conversation with Mr. Michael, we talk about his story as a pop country writer based out of LA. He's got one of the coolest stories that we've heard yet about the We Should Write Some Time app and how it helped him with what he was doing out in LA. He is awesome. Check it out. Let me just make sure. Let me do gallery view. Make sure that's all right. Sweet. So yeah, what's nice is with the office space that he has for his nonprofit, they make we have like a little co-writing room, but it also obviously doubles as like a streaming room. And so we'll have, everything's starting to slowly open up and all that good stuff. So people are able to write here back in Nashville a lot. So it's a nice space for people to come write. And then there's like another streaming room as well that we use for some other stuff that he does for some of the other stuff with his nonprofit. But yeah, man, super jacked to chat with you. You're out in LA?
yeah, yep.
How long you been out there?
Here, like exactly a year ago.
From where originally?
I'm from Chicago originally.
Nice. What part?
Technically I used to live by Midway Airport like back in the day, but technically the burbs like Wheaton, Naperville area.
Yeah. A lot of my good college friends grew up in Naperville. So like.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Because I went to Miami of Ohio, so there's like a lot of like, for some reason, anybody I met from Chicago, they're like, yeah, I grew up in Naperville. All right, sweet.
Nice.
Yeah, man. And so did you go out there to pursue music and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, I did. So I've been a full-time musician now for like 4 years, mostly touring.
Awesome.
And songwriting. And then, like you just kind of hit that ceiling when you're not in any of the music cities, and you're just like, well, I either got to do Nashville or New York or LA, right? And so my current roommates are actually from Naperville. They're full-time musicians too. And they're like, hey, you want to move to LA? And I'm just like, I think that sounds cool,
Yeah, why not?
And it's funny because, we mostly rely on like touring, for our incomes and everything. And so I was like, oh, like it's always sunny there. Like patio season will always be open, But it's funny because now that we live here, like during the winter, like people are so cold when it's like 60 and stuff, so the patios do in fact shut down.
Yeah.
So,
you're like, this is beautiful. I want to be outside,
Right. That was last year. I'm not gonna lie, it's grown on me.
Yeah.
Hence my like sweater and like sweatpants.
Yeah. No, I get it.
It's like 70. I'm like, oh, it's freezing.
Yeah. I get it. I moved from Cincinnati to Nashville, and so it's not as drastic, but there's still kind of that whole, it snows maybe once, and it really very rarely, has any accumulation or anything. But no, I get what you're saying. So, you used to be like totally cool with it, and you're like, now I'm freezing. This is ridiculous.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that was yesterday for sure when we.
That's awesome.
And it doesn't help that with COVID, everything is like out. Well, especially in LA. Like I don't really know how Nashville is, but everything like since March in LA has been outdoor only.
Yeah. I feel like. Have you been to Nashville before?
Yeah. I actually toured there last year and the year before that.
Where'd you play?
I played at. I'm blanking on the names. I played at quite a few places.
Yeah.
Here, let me look real fast if you don't mind.
No, yeah, go for it.
Played at. It was 2018. Played at South Bar and Restaurant.
Yeah.
In Demumbrian.
Yeah.
Played at Douglas Corner.
Sweet.
Played at the Goat in Murfreesboro.
That's great.
404 Bar, and then Corky's in Brentwood, and then Bobby's Idle Hour. 2 Old Hippies.
Yeah.
Belcourt Taps, you know,
I
everyone
love
played
it.
at Belcourt Taps.
Yeah, South unfortunately isn't there anymore. They keep trying
Oh,
they keep trying to make it something different.
oh, really?
Well, they just like clean it up a little bit and then slap another name on it, and they're like, "This is good, right? People will come." Like, no, guys.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
when I
man.
played there, it was like completely dead, but I met these two. There's these two guys there, like younger guys. And then they're like, "Oh, you're so good," like, and they started talking to me, and they're like, "We're actually like from uh New Orleans, and we drove up here to like shop around at studios for like some
Yeah,
studio monitors for a home studio." So I became friends with them, and they brought me to like all these like super nice recording studios, Ocean
yeah.
Way and like Blackbird Studio, and I was just like, this is insane.
I love it.
So
And
yeah,
then,
there's so many awesome people you can meet like in
yeah.
Nashville just by chance.
Yeah, it's interesting. And was there a particular reason, maybe more genre based, just because like, dude, love that. We'll get into that into our conversation a little bit, but was that primarily why you chose LA maybe over Nashville? Was just the genre of music?
Yeah, I do write country, but I've kind of trying to been more focused towards like pop a little bit.
Sure.
But I've been writing like a lot of country. Like the last song I wrote last week is a kind of like a country
Yeah,
song with a little bit of pop. And then
sure.
I have like four pretty strong country songs that I'm gonna start pitching
Right.
soon.
Well, yeah, and you know, the big thing is for me, and I just like getting to know, you know, guys like you, and I appreciate you using the app and then working on it and then sending me that
Mhm.
story. I think it's one of those where we're still so early with this whole thing,
Yeah.
but it is for me to kind of just gauge and have these type of conversations and go, hey, like, how do we build kind of this infrastructure with the app and help out in whatever way that you need, right? Like in terms of the connections within the music industry of going, hey, if it's trying to get in front of publishers, like which ones and what's the best way to do
Mm.
that. And um, there's always that joke in Nashville, I guess it's not a joke, it's for real, but you know, that whole saying of Nashville's a 10-year town.
Yeah.
how do we how do we make it 4, right? Like,
That's cool. That's cool.
how do we make it 3? And I say
Hmm.
that not just to be like, oh, we are going to change everything, but I think it's just for us starting with the songwriter itself and saying, look, like, not everybody has the same goals and dreams and ambitions in terms of what they want, but it's, can we build this thing in a way of, you know, you want to get here, well, what are the steps that takes, and let's
Hmm.
minimize the friction points in between that of, if it's networking or if it's just, hey, I don't know who to go to, I don't know how the business works, I think we can try to fill those gaps, if that kind of makes sense, and give back to songwriters and say, just write great stuff and we'll take
Hmm.
care of the, not the business side. Everybody's got to learn the business, but I think it's that frustration point for a lot of songwriters. Like, I just want to write music and I just want to write really good
Right.
songs, but
Right.
I don't know or feel like I can navigate the other waters of the business side, if you will.
Hmm.
How do we help that? You know, and right now people are like, aren't you just swiping on people? And we're like, well, now, yes.
Right.
Uh, that's
That's so
exactly,
cool. I
yeah.
love
So
that vision though that you have. Like that's so
thanks.
awesome.
Well,
Yeah, it's definitely like a big picture music or
sure.
uh
Because I think
look.
it's, yeah, I think it's, how do we, and you from Chicago, so you big Cubs fan?
Yeah, I was gonna wear my Cubs hat, but I
No,
don't want
you
to offend
can, man.
anyone.
I'm super listen, I'm super jealous. You know, like the Reds have been god awful for so long.
Mm.
So that sucks. But anyway, but just like baseball, right? Like, how do we kind of create this minor league system for the MLB, right? It's you start here, we've got all the coaches and the players and the teams that help you
Yeah.
progress to that next level. How do we somewhat emulate that within this ecosystem kind of the next phase, right? It's great. Let's take who's written great songs within here. Now we have some people within the industry asking us and saying, hey, who are the next up and coming XYZ in X genre? And we want to be able to push that and promote them and just say, hey guys, like here are the rising stars, if you will, which kind of then goes, how do we take the songs that are getting created within the app and just say, you don't need to be necessarily in LA, Nashville, or New York, you know, in a couple years time,
right?
But just write great stuff and work really hard, and we'll take care of the rest. Not 100%, but just the massive friction stuff that I think could block really good artists or writers from wanting to continue in this business because of that stuff. So,
yeah, I love that, because that is like I hate to say it, but like when it comes down to music, like all that matters is sales, really. And I hate to say it, like I usually do 250 shows a year, and I book them pretty much all, like 99% all by myself. And I always make a joke to my friends. I'm like, I'm not a full-time musician. I'm a full-time salesman that can play guitar and sing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's kind of sad though, because like so many songwriters write all these like amazing songs, and like who knows like how many like insanely good songs are out there that are never gonna like ever hear or ever get heard, because you know that sales part is like missing, or like that opportunity to like pitch it, you know, is missing, or like they don't want to spend, you know, 10 hours a week doing that when they could spend 10 hours a week writing more awesome songs, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I give kudos to you. I mean, because plenty of friends that grind like that, but I think you're still in that, from my understanding and just kind of who I talk to, it's like you're in the 1% of 1% of like, I'm going to play 250 shows, but I'm going to do all of the outreach, all of the follow-up, selling myself, booking those shows. And I know how hard that is. So kudos to you.
Yeah, it's so much work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you know, you get both sides of the coin, I think, of, hey, like you can pay people to do that. You know, and then you're like, well, you know, that's an economical decision I'm not sure I want to worry about right now. And then on the flip side, it's kind of like one of those, like 4 years from now, you're just like, see what I grinded so hard and made that happen on my own. Like, I don't need you guys. Like, I'll do this myself, kind of thing. And I get it. I totally get it. But
yeah, it's true.
Yeah, man, if you would, I would love to hear kind of the story that you were sending me within the app. And I appreciate that so much, because we're starting to catalog kind of like all the songs that are being sent to us. And then we're gonna really work hard at what the next phase of that is. And so, but yeah, I would love just to hear that story.
Yeah, I think it's such a cool story. So actually I'll give you like I'll go even further back.
Yeah, please.
So, you know, obviously, like I was living in Chicago a year ago, and to kind of like prepare myself like for the move, I spent like 8 months back in April 2019, right? Kind of 8 months of prep, like compiling a list of gigs, like you know, like I just said, hustling on the gigs. I already had like 5 gigs a week, like the second I moved out here. But I was also like talking to publishers. And then I met Valerie Jones over at Song Oasis, I think.
Oh, sweet.
Sound Oasis in Torrance, California. And she's like, you know, like I think you're a really great songwriter, but like honestly, like we don't really like sign writers. Like she's like, I wish we like kind of were still in that, but we kind of moved towards like copyright and like the legal side of things. And then she's like such a sweetheart. Like she's just been like a huge like proponent of me, and like always like sending me information. So I think she sent me an article from like a BMI, some type of like electronic magazine or something. like saying like, and then it was like you guys, it was like, oh, you should check out this app called like We Should Write Sometime. I'm like, well, obviously I should do that. So I downloaded it, and then like just started hustling, and like as a music, like as a collaborator, my like philosophy has always been like my philosophy and like how to find like collaborators is I'm always like a fan first and then a collaborator second, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I just like go through the app, and I like I started in LA, and so I go through the app, you know, click on the person's profile, check out their Instagram, see like if they're active, see you know, if they're active and they have a good presence, check out like their Spotify and like any other stuff, see like how active their music currently is. And then that's kind of like my like, because you know, like I hate saying that because it kind of sounds bad.
No,
but it's like I'm a songwriter trying to get cuts. Like I'm not gonna like spend a lot of time like on someone who's never gonna like get their songs listened to. Like sure, like I'm working with up and coming people, so I check out their stuff. If their music's super good but they don't get like any hits or any like Instagram listens, like, you know, or whatever, like I'll talk to them still. But like it's always like, how good is their music, basically. It's like that first, and secondly, like how much activity do they have. So like if those, I'll pretty much go on one of two of those things, but if both of those things hit, it's like a golden, I guess, for me, is like how I think of it. So then I'll reach out to them on the app, and I'll reach out to them on Instagram also, and then they'll get back to me on like one or the other. And then that's typically how I go about approaching collaborators. And actually I gotta tell you this to get a little sidetracked, but
I love it, man.
I have a write this week on Thursday with a girl I met from the app.
Yes.
And then I got a co-write next Wednesday in LA with a dude I met on the app. Yeah. And then and then I just finished like probably one of the best like country songs I wrote with this dude that I met on the app that hit me up. He's living in like North Carolina, but he's from like Scotland. And we just wrote like, and then so we got another write on the 24th.
See, and so please, like you obviously don't have to like record the whole thing, but just like little snippets of it, because then like we'll get, you know, we'll make sure we're throwing that stuff out there, right? Because I think it's we want to do more of this stuff and do more of just kind of the success stories. And I think a lot of the times, especially at this early stage startup type feel, like what is asked a lot of us is like, what are the successes that come of it? And so there's a big incentive for us to promote anybody that has good stuff. And again, like I get the hesitation of saying, here's this new song, and it might just be a work demo, or like, you know, it's not fully done yet. But even if it's just like a snippet of it, you know, like it just totally raw, I think it's kind of like a trailer sometimes to movies. They're like, oh, wow, like that's really interesting. I would like to hear that when it's completed or done. And then that
I see.
Us kind of promote not only the songwriters, but the song in itself to kind of just stir up some things. And again, like we're in this for the long run, but that's the stuff now that I think, you know, only if people want, right? Like it's never a necessity, but we always want to give back to songwriters that are giving to us and using it and promoting it like you are. And what does that reciprocation look like? So yeah, man, like any of that stuff, I absolutely love, because I think that, like, I'm sure they're all going to be really good songs, but the one of I'm in LA, connect with a dude in North Carolina, we wrote this song and now it's got a hold in Nashville. Like that gets us to that next conversation, right? True. Going, oh, okay, that's different. So anyway, but yeah, keep going. That's super.
No, that is a good point, because like, you know, if like, I mean, we're gonna start pitching this song actually to publishers. Like we're starting to work on the demo pretty soon. He just actually sent me a guitar vocal session for it today. So
beautiful.
So yeah, that would be like a great story. Like,
right.
you know, like, oh, we got a hold in Nashville now, like, and then we're gonna get a cut with a major label artist. You know, that would just be sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's that. But about this song, I actually got another song with this dude in New York that I didn't tell you about. He put it out and credited me because I wrote like some guitar parts.
Oh,
so
sweet.
technically, I got like 2 cuts from that.
Yeah. No, man, I like your name's on the Spotify song credit, man. I dig it.
Yeah. So this dude, Nick Cozine, he's from LA. I just checked out his stuff. He's like a pretty
Sure.
pretty successful LA songwriter producer, but he's also starting this artist project. And so I checked out his music, and it's kind of like, it's like pop, it's like new wave, like pop punk, like think like Blink-182, Green Day, but with like a very like new like top 40 pop sounds. Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, honestly, I'm not like that into like super duper pop, but like for me, like I started writing country, and I always take that like storytelling approach when it comes to songwriting. So I want to be like that guy that makes like new pop like sound good. You know what I mean? Because like, how many times do you hear like a song on the radio and it's just like, oh, this is like a cringy pop song? So I kind of think of myself as like the guy that's gonna make pop sound good again.
I get it, man. One of my closest friends, he's on the app, and he was like, his profile says something like, if Ed Sheeran and Justin Timberlake and Chris Stapleton all had a baby, like that's me. And so like,
yeah, that's amazing.
So I love that.
So, you know, like, I guess what I'm getting at with that is like, I don't really like consider, like, I don't really see myself as like a super pop musician.
Sure.
So, but you know, he's still pop and everything. So I was like, whatever, hit him up. I think like his sound and my sound together would sound great. So his schedule was super busy, and I was like, you know what, man, like, I know you're really busy. Like, and he sent me like a bunch of guitar loops that he like kind of had, like kind of like seeds of songs, if you will, because he's like also a producer. And so I was like, you know what, man, like I wrote a whole song to this already for you. and so he like listened to it, and he's like, oh yeah, it's really good. So we worked on it. This had to have been, I want to like give you some timestamps here. Just so you can get like a timeline.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Oh yeah, so this was June 18th. I sent him the song like in a text.
I love it.
And
yes.
And then actually it had to have been like early June, because then we scheduled like a rewrite of it, like so he could kind of make it more him, sure. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so it really went really good. The song was really great. He didn't really get back to me at all. I'm just kind of like looking through the text.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, oh yeah, so we were gonna actually have plans to meet up in person to like start doing the song actually. And then remember it like started surging, like the coronavirus started surging in like early July, late June.
Yeah.
So he was like, yo, with the recent surge, like we might have to do another like Zoom session. And I was like, all right. And then so it just never happened. Just like, you know, people get busy, and then the coronavirus. So then I kept hustling on the app, and then and this is where the story gets interesting.
I love it.
So let me just pull this all up, just so I'm like telling you accurate things.
This is my favorite. This is my favorite story. I love it.
Nice. Yeah, this is a cool story because it's like 2 people I met on the app, us 3, like without even it being purposeful, we just all come together. You know what I mean?
I have so much cool stuff to tell you, but I want to hear the whole story first.
So I messaged Miles September 13th. So this was like 3 months after me and Nick, it kind of just like faded away. I'm like, yo, I found you on We Should Write Sometime. I really dig your style, and I'm in LA. Like, we should collab.
Yeah.
And then he's like, and then I'm like, he's like, I'll check you out. I'm like, how long are you in LA for? And
Yeah.
so this is September 16th, and he's like, till the end of the month. And then I'm like, and then I started like getting a little nervous because I really like love this sound, but it's like super
Yeah.
hip hop and like R&B, and like I can write that stuff, but my strongest is like country and pop and rock. But I always have been a huge fan of R&B, and I think like I'd be great at writing R&B, and I have written R&B before. So I started getting nervous, and then I just had this like crazy idea. I was like, I have this R&B and rap producer too that could help. That could help if you want. He works with a lot of local people, and he's like, oh, he's like that would be. So I'm talking about the dude that I met on We Should Write Sometime, right? And he's like, oh, that would be perfect. Would you two be down to come over to my home studio near Pasadena?
Wow.
And I'm like, yeah, what works? And he's like, Monday afternoon. And I'm just like, oh, like I'm texting him to see if that works for him. And then he said that only the 29th works. So it's the last day of the month. And he's like, yeah, that works. And then so I basically threw us all into a group text.
Yeah.
On Instagram. Here, let me just find it. 1 second. 1 second. Here we go. All right. So I was like, so I threw everyone into a group text on Instagram, and I was like, hey, everyone, Nick can only do the 29th of this month. How does that work? And then everyone's like, that's perfect. So it's literally the last day that he's going to be like at the home studio in the Airbnb.
I love it.
And Nick was just like, yeah, man, like just give us the address and we'll be ready to go. And then like we didn't really hear from him, so we're just like, oh crap, like is he gonna like like you know how it goes.
Yeah.
And then so we like messaged him a bunch of times, and we're like, yeah, man, like just 2 p.m. work, what's the address? And he didn't say anything until like 5 days later. And then he was like, all right. And then so like there was a little like oh, should we do like the night, like it was just the scheduling kept getting all screwed up.
Yeah.
And then so eventually like it worked out, and we're like, all right. So we both drove to Pasadena. We went to his Airbnb.
How
I
far
brought
away
both of my from me it's about like 40 minutes.
Okay.
Or something. Yeah, 40, 50 minutes. So I brought both of my guitars. I was like, do you ever because I listen to his songs, I'm like, would you mind like having like guitar in your song, like kind of just like a group? You heard the song, right? It's kind of just like 2 chords.
Dude.
He's like, yeah. He's like, that'd be cool. So I brought both of my guitars, and then we just like all met up there. And he had some like really nice equipment, like some real like a U87s. Yeah, he had like U87s, like Apollo like twins. I'm like, dang, all right.
And is that specifically for this stuff? Like I feel like.
No, he like brought everything. He brought everything. He like set up like PVC pipe in the living room, and like draped like blankets over it. Like it was like a very legitimate, illegitimate setup.
Yeah. That's great.
And then we're just like, hey man, like, are you trying to do like a slow song or like a fast song? And he's like, oh, I want something kind of slow like this, and he like showed us like an example. And then me and the producer just kind of started, I just kind of started strumming chords, like kind of just trying to find a vibe. And then he was like, oh, like that's it. And I'm like, all right. And so we just like laid it down, and then we just started kind of like building the song a little bit. And then he's just, and then he's like, yeah, he's like, me and my girl are like kind of going through something right now. And then we're like, all right. And he's just kind of telling us the story.
Yeah.
And then we just started like writing the song, like all of us three. And he's like, usually I'm used to just like kind of like writing, like I'll buy a track from someone and then just like write to it. He's like, this is so cool. I've never like built a song like up from the ground, like in such like an organic way.
Yeah.
I'm like, And I'm like, yeah, man, like it's fun. And then so 7 hours later, we had the song written and like completely like produced and finished.
Awesome, dude.
Yeah.
I love this so much. I could hear the story over and over again. When did it get released? From like, what was the time difference between like done to okay, now it's available?
Pretty quick. So we went there on September 29th, which I believe September only had 29 days. Oh no, 30 days.
Yeah.
So September 29th. And it was funny because there's a rap in it, and we didn't write the rap with them just because like you can't really like write a rap with someone, I feel like.
Yeah.
And so he stayed up to like, because he had to be out of there at like early. He stayed up probably like all night to like 5 a.m. like finishing the rap and like mixing it and stuff. And he was like, man, like he's like, this is like my like he's like, I love this song. Like, he's like, this is my like favorite song on the EP because there's 3 songs.
Right.
But he was like, if the song's good, I'm just gonna like put it on the EP. And we're like, all right, well, me and him, you know, me and Nick being songwriters, we're like, all right, this is a great opportunity. We can't just pass up. And then so he was like, you know, people talk, you know what I mean? It's LA also. So we're like, I didn't want to get my hopes up too much. But he seemed very genuine. He was like, yeah, like I really love the song. Like I'm gonna put it out. But he didn't really like ask us for any of our like songwriter information. So I just kind of like sent it to him.
That was literally gonna be my next question.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. Maybe that should be like a little, like a thing, like IPI number, ASCAP or BMI. But somehow, because he put it out on Apple Music, let's see, I want to say like 3 days ago.
Yeah. It's so funny you say that because, I mean, again, we'll finish the story and then I'll kind of walk through things that I hear from you and I think is super interesting.
Yeah, so here, I'll give you an exact date here.
So like, yeah, because you guys were done, and then, I mean, did you talk about splits and then get all that information, or how was that done?
So, yeah, so basically we didn't really talk about that. It was kind of just like assumed. We're like, yeah, I think we were just like, yeah, give us writing credit.
Like 30.
But me and Nick are pretty experienced songwriters, and then Miles is an artist, but I think he's like pretty new. So I think me and Nick kind of just like assumed in our heads since we're like experienced, but we should have clarified it with them.
Sure.
But it actually didn't end up being a problem, but I'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
So, what did I say? I want to like tell you exactly what I said. Oh, maybe I texted. Let's see. Okay. I can't find it. I can't find it, but he was super happy. The artist was super happy about it. I messaged him somewhere, like saying something. Yeah. And so it came out on Apple Music on. It came out on Apple Music on November 6th.
Oh my God.
So it's pretty, yeah, it's like brand new. And then I want to say like 2 days later, it came out on Spotify.
Yeah.
So like November 8th, like literally 2 days ago, it came out on Spotify.
And he took care of all of that, the getting it distributed on all of that.
That's awesome. Yeah. I don't know what service he used. But yeah, I remember I messaged Nick when it first came out on Apple iTunes, and I was like, dang, like, I was like, I gave him my songwriter information, but he never said anything, and you can't check on Apple Music. So I hope that he credited us.
Yeah.
And then when it came out on Spotify 2 days ago, we like looked at the credits, and it said,
yeah.
It had our names and everything.
As soon as you sent it to me, that's where I went to check, and I was like, oh yes, that's awesome.
And so actually, this might give you maybe some type of insight of some sort.
Yeah.
So when I was talking to Nick, like just us two, I was like, so actually Nick responded to my Instagram story and was like, yeah, like let's go, like the song's coming out. And I was like, well, hopefully give us credit because technically we own like a third of the publishing and the songwriting. And he's
Right.
like, haha, I know, I was just thinking that he's all new to this, so just kind of show him around. I'm like, and then and I'm like, yeah, maybe the best way to do it is just like wait and see when it comes out of Spotify if he credit us, which he did.
Yeah.
And then Nick sent us, you probably heard of this app. He sent us like a thing through Splits or Split.
Jamber. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe, yeah, Jam.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jamber is
But
the
like,
company. Yeah, yeah. So they put out, well, does it say Jamber on there? Because their app's called Splits, but like, is it an app?
I just got like an email saying like Splits landslide agreement is now active. I don't see anything about Jammer.
Does it say which company did it? And the only reason is that there's
Um,
just a local company in Nashville that launched an app called Splits to help with all that.
yeah.
I'm just curious, like with the
No, it says like I can't really see it on here. It says like Splits with like a little trademark thing. You see that?
oh, okay. So yeah, yeah. I guess
Yeah, I don't see anything about Jammer. I
is
see
it?
like Create Music Group is like the
Do they
business
have
name
it
they go by.
SPLITZ or?
SPLITS.
Let me try something
It's
real
like
quick.
an app of some sort.
Yeah. Split. It says.
Oh, maybe there's another Splits.
I think there definitely could be.
Oh, I think there is actually. Because you're probably thinking of this Splits, which is the
Yeah,
app that
yeah,
I have. Yeah, and then I'm like looking at the
yeah.
logo, right?
I know. It
And then
just didn't look right. It didn't look the
this
same.
was see that logo?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I went into the app store and there's a different one called there's like a different app called Splits.
How did they get that trademark? That's funny.
And it was funny because I was when I got that email to see like the agreement was accepted, I went into the app and I was like, "Oh, it's not like showing up in the app. That's weird." So
Yeah.
I think there's a different app actually also called the same thing. And I had to scroll down a little bit on iOS.
So yeah, it says from Billboard, it's like new Splits app from Create Music Group.
Yeah. So
Uh,
that
so they
must
came
have been the
out
one that he did.
back in, I guess, early last year. Well, and that's just one of those things where we look at this and go, how do we integrate this stuff with, APIs, right? Like just
Mm,
you're in the app. There's so much that we're going to do and update here in the next 6 months.
I love that. That's so awesome.
But I think the things that I hear a lot of is exactly what you're talking about, which is why I love that story. But it's, to me, I hear just time being wasted, and not like in a bad way, but like, in a frustrating way of like, hey, it should be a lot easier to coordinate all of this stuff, and then the business side like this, like it not be assumed, right? Like, and not that, and then there's the cultural aspect of songwriting, as you well know, right? Like LA and Nashville, like it's always just, hey, if it's equal no matter what.
Right. Right.
But that's not necessarily the same culture in LA and New York if you're doing the pop R&B side of it, where
Hmm.
it's not as, it's a little, it's a little more, hey, the artist could say it's 80-20, like, and I did,
True.
so it just totally depends. So I like hearing how it's currently being done, and obviously it's pretty much the same, but just from the story perspective of where can we then make it easier for you guys when you're using the app and being like, hey, like not only did we find each other, then we could then coordinate from a logistical perspective with the calendars, and then going from there, like now you're in the room together. What is then the next logical step? Whether the song's created yet or not, like here, there's just a lot of these things that we want to make it so incredibly user friendly, but not, we got to make it really simple, right? Like I think it can't be this big confusion thing, because, you know, I think that's where, you know, I'm always pretty transparent, like with our roadmap, and, you know, we have in the next release or next features that we're rolling out, like a tiered model system, you know, like so like verified songwriters, verified art, like that way there's a little bit of this, oh great, like now we can start moving up, you know, we get just like all of those blue check marks, and just being like, great, if I'm an artist or writer, I know that I'm a professional, I'm only going to see other professionals who are doing it full time or have a publisher or whatever. Because then you kind of get to that point of, well, they might already know, okay, wait, what's the splits, right? Like, what are we doing here? How is that done? And not have to worry like, hey, they're newer to the game, and we're just trying to write songs together. Like we don't really, you know, have any future to play in front of 10,000 people. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just a hobby kind of thing.
Yeah. No, that's a great idea. That's a great idea.
Because we know, like, and we know that there's a lot of just UX, UI stuff that's frustrating, and I always use this cliche and I guess excuse, but it's the Reid Hoffman from LinkedIn. He was like, if you're not embarrassed by your first release, then you've launched too late. And you know, there's still so much stuff that, like, when we first launched, we had no notifications, no geolocation. Like, we still don't have timestamps on messages. Like, that drives me insane. Like, all of these things that I know are, like, people, like, are frustrated. Like, how do I do this? And this doesn't do that. And I'm like, guys, I know. Like, I can't copy and paste. And it's like, guys, I know that these are problems. Like we're working on them.
There's just so much work to be done.
And it's also that point of why I love these conversations and getting these stories is like, it's good to know what are the must-haves versus nice-to-haves, especially for a new startup that's still young and like it's me and a co-founder and that's it. And then, you know, like the backstory is like, I had a friend that was starting the development on the app before we even launched it, and I had a full-time job in kind of tech sales. He's a full-time developer at his own shop, and this was all a side thing, and we worked on it for 8 months with him, and we were like, cool, like we're chugging along, and he up and just quit, like after 8 months. And you know, at the time, devastating, like this. I feel like we wasted 8 months, but I can tell you very honestly, like, and he's still one of my best friends, thank God that happened. Like it was the best thing that could have happened to us, because all of the things that we had planned to put in before we even launched it are now kind of like, well, that could have been, that's now like way down the road. And the things that we thought were way down the road, given the virtual space and all these other logistical things that we want to incorporate, are now kind of moved up into this, just to like help with all of the users and make it easier for everybody. And so it was nice that happened, because we were like, oh, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, and it's gonna be amazing. And like, thank God it didn't work out, because we would have put out some stuff that people would have been like, I don't need this, I need that. And so like, it's these conversations that highlight that.
I see.
So yeah, like calendar integration is going to be a huge thing, and kind of a homegrown type thing, so that, you know, you swipe on Nick swipes on you. Like, we're also going to have like more people allowed into the same group, so that way you don't have to go into your I'm like into your iPhone, into the messages and text, and then creating your group. It's, hey, now it's just within the app. But then from there, right, like we're going to have it so that if you look at the other people's calendar, other songwriters' calendars, you can see what's available to them. And just through like, you know, like Calendly does and some of those other calendars. And all you do is kind of click on it, right? And the idea is we both have next Thursday from 12 to 5 open. You click on it and I just get a notification that just says, hey, you know, Michael wants to co-write next Thursday, and you just click yes or no, and that's it, right? And
I love that.
That's the idea. And like, so that's what we're working on with the calendar stuff, because I think, as you know, like as your story kind of alludes to, it's like what day, what time, what works. I don't know. It's a lot of back and forth.
It is. No, I like that.
Yeah.
No, I like that. Like when you said like, oh, you get like a push email or some type of push, like, oh, like they want to write with you on this day at this time, yes or no. Like, and it's like, oh, if I could just be like, boop, or like,
and that
or
way,
like, no, it's like, all right.
Yeah. And it'll, that way, when it's linked to your Outlook or Google or whatever is on the back end of your calendar, then it'll block it off, right? So if we don't want you to have to manage 2 calendars is kind of the point.
Right.
You know, that's why Calendly and those type of things do a really good job of that. It's like, hey, like, even though I'm not working or whatever, I don't want anybody to book this time. Similar feel to that.
Yeah. And I think, like, frankly, if it was like another calendar, no one would use it just because it's like another one. And now you have like 2 separate confusing things going on.
Can't do it. And that's the requirement stuff of like, how is it simple and that people don't have to think about it versus, oh, if they know I'm available and like I only have to just say yes or no, or like, hey, you know, let's move it to another date. You don't have to do what I think 98% of people in business do. It's like, hey, I'd love to have a call with you. How does next Tuesday at 10 work? And you're like, oh, dude, no. And I don't want to have to get like, you know, list off a bunch of buckets of time that are open. Anyway.
Yeah. Actually, another really important thing that I like came across a lot, like with the whole scheduling, especially, and this is like with this, but this is what I love about the app. You can like go anywhere with it, right? So like the time zones.
Yes.
Definitely kind of throw, and like, I'll admit it, like I had this co-write from the app with this dude in Nashville, and it was me and my producer here. And he was like, all right, like, let's write at like 2. And then like, for some reason, me and my producer both thought like, instead of Pacific time being 2 hours behind, like we know that, but our brains were just being stupid for whatever reason that day. And we were like, all right, we're 2 hours ahead. So we like, you know, so if there's like if there's some also like type of like automation clarification where it's like, you know, like 3 p.m. New York time or 12 p.m. Pacific time, like where it's like an automated like 100%. Time zone thing.
And I think that's where the integration piece comes in handy of going, I know you're in LA. I know you're in Nashville. But if if someone schedules it, it's eliminating that the calories burnt of thinking about crap that you shouldn't have to think about. So got it, right? That stuff, you know, it takes a little bit of obviously back end work and integration things, because then, you know, then comes the whole idea of, well, you have to link up your Google and Outlook, and, you know, it's amazing. The things that we think are very simple, there are plenty of people that think are complicated. And, so, you know, when it comes to swiping, right? Like, love my mother to death. She'd be, if I was like, hey, just swipe right, I probably guarantee she swipes left. And she's like, I don't know, I just felt like going that way. And you're like, you know, and we don't have tutorial cards. We're putting those in. And so, like, I think this is why I love that feedback, because then it just kind of goes, like we need to put more time, energy, and effort on this stuff not so much. But it's so funny you said the IPI numbers, because that was a thing that we started putting in last week. Of like, it's
Oh,
not
nice.
yet, but just in terms of where that's going to lie, you know, within, because here's the other thing that we're seeing, and I think that might be part of the premium tier. Not that everybody can't have it, but we have, you know, 5,000 songwriters. 60% of them don't have a PRO.
I bet, yeah.
So I think there's a lot of not only opportunity for us to educate on that, but then also to work with these PROs to get in front of them, just to help them.
Oh, yeah.
And we're working on that from like the partnership side.
Oh, yeah.
And I think what we want to be careful of is not making it so like that's a must have, right, for people, because we changed it. I think, you know, if you got on it last year, like we changed it so you don't see people if they don't have a complete profile.
Oh, I see.
Which I think changed a lot of people's minds of like, there's just a bunch of crap, and like no one, like people download it and they don't fill out the profile. So it's a bunch of blank profiles. So now if you don't have a picture, don't have a bio of like 20 characters or whatever, and nothing else, and you won't be visible. And so
that's smart. Yeah, that's smart.
And I think it's just kind of like, you know, what you were saying, we look at it as a time thing of like, hey, I spend time vetting people, right? And we jokingly call it We Should Write Sometime, because, you know, you spent time in Nashville, like probably in LA, it's the same. It's like you meet a songwriter and it's always like, hey, we should write some time. And then
it is
even harder in LA is logistics, right? Then you like schedule time, show up, and then you're like, this isn't what I wanted. We both either do lyrics, we need a melody person, or we're not the genre. And that's why we kind of mirrored the dating apps of like, you know, it makes it more efficient because there's a vetting process, and you're like, I don't want that. This is a potential. And so it kind of helps save the trek across town for 2 hours and then it's awkward. And so, you know, at this stage, right, it's like we want as many songwriters on there as possible, but we also want people to have, we don't say, hey, like, we're going to give you the most co-writes. Like, I think you could go on Facebook and be like, I want to write with anybody in this group, but we want you to get the best ones. And, you know, how do you do that? It's like going through that process of, you know, hey, this is somebody that I do think I would jive well with. They have the right genre, the right skill set. These people, not so much. And, you know, like, again, I think there's something to be said about messaging within the app, messaging into Instagram. Okay, great. Like that, we want people to not have to do that per se, but, you know, from an app perspective, like it is the idea of, hey, I'm swiping through songwriters because something very cool and unexpected could really show up.
Yeah.
You know? And we're always recording this, but, you know, like just like on the dating apps, I get feedback like, hey, I just want to search for people. I don't want to have to swipe. And oftentimes there's not any familiarity with kind of how the dating app psychology works of like, if you just wanted blondes and typed in blondes, then that's fine. But like the whole idea of swiping is the unexpected. Like, oh, you know,
True.
Like
True.
There's something or somebody that I actually thought I was only interested in these people, but now this comes to in front of my face and I can hear their music, hear their sound, like, whoa, that's kind of different, kind of cool. I would have never searched for that. And so now
I could see that.
Yeah, now it's kind of that idea of new and exciting versus, no, I know what I want. And you're like, actually, damn, like that's really good. And I think we could do some cool new things. And so how do we help? You know, our goal isn't to like eliminate genres, but like now that we're in Israel, right? You've got a track guy in Israel connected with a, you know, top liner in LA and a melody person in Nashville. And you're like, I don't know what's coming out of there, but could be new and cool, you know, like could be new and cool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love that though. That's like, I thought that was so cool. Like, I've always been a huge fan of like British rock music.
Yeah.
So it's like now that I could be in Britain, like I can write some like
Well,
awesome rock songs.
that's next. That's next for us.
Okay.
So it's U.S., Canada, Australia, and Israel, and a lot of
Okay.
that,
Okay.
and a lot of that has to do with compliance, right? Like I think these
Right.
are all things starting up. You kind of just go, no, just like open up and the open up everywhere. Like I don't know why.
Mhm.
I was always curious before I got into the app part of this of like, why don't apps just open up everywhere? And then like, you know, Europe and the UK, it's like they have GDPR, data privacy laws, like you release over there and these things happen and you know, you're not ready for it or up to standards and code and all this stuff. It's bad. And so all that stuff I didn't know. And so now it's like, do we have the back end infrastructure to handle it all? And then, you know, what are the things that we need to do to make sure that we are at that level that is in compliance with everything from a privacy and data policy.
Mhm.
That's why I can never be a lawyer, I guess. I'd like read this stuff. And I'm just like, man, awful. That's soon. We are very, very close, which is exciting because I probably once or twice a week I get either a DM or a LinkedIn message of like, hey, tried to download blah blah blah, can't do it. And I'm like, believe me, as soon as we can. You know, I'm like, I'm not holding off for fun. Like this isn't like, well, I'm holding off on opening up over there. It's like, no, believe me, I wish I could today.
Yeah.
So yeah, but
A lot of barriers.
sure, dude. Well, listen, man, I can't thank you enough. This has been awesome. Anything else that I can answer or anything else that you want to share?
I think that's about it. No, I love that you guys are gonna start doing the IPIs, and I love the
Yeah,
calendar thing.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
coming.
because it's funny, like two songwriters that I met through the app that I've written with and one I plan on writing with. The only thing, like the only reason why I don't have a date on the calendar with them right now is because we've taken like 2 days figuring out
It's insane.
calendar stuff. You know
It's
what I mean?
and that's so like that's I'm gonna eliminate that, right? Like it's
Yeah.
you know, and we'll get there. But dude, I can't thank you enough. Super,
Yeah, likewise.
super awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Kevin.
Yeah, well, great song, great story. We're happy
Thank you.
to promote the crap out of it. And then what I'll do, right, is, you know, kind of chop this up, send it over to you, and I won't ever post anything without your looking at it. But yeah, I think your story is fantastic, and you know that's why we do this, my man.
Yeah, no, we all the songwriters appreciate whatever you guys are doing. Like,
Thanks, man.
it's definitely, you know, especially now with COVID, it's definitely like really brought us all together. And
Yeah,
you know, like, yeah, like I really just started like really seriously like collaborating this year, but like
it's awesome.
honestly, like my calendar has been like, in terms of co-writing, it has been busy as it is only because of the app. Like
Well,
honestly.
thank you. That means a
Yeah.
lot. And again, like you've already given great feedback, and you know, hopefully this is one of many conversations we have, because I think not only to help promote your music and your songwriting, but just you obviously know the industry and can help, and that's what we want to give value back to you. So
That's awesome.
if you think of anything, let me know. But I can't thank you enough, and it was a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. Do you mind if I post a picture on my Instagram?
Please, bro, do it.
All right, I'm gonna get one right real fast here.
I don't know which. I feel like I should be holding something. Like that looks weird.
That works. The mic. Bam, perfect.
Love it, dude. Please post.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah,
All right,
well.
brother. We'll talk soon. All right.
All right, great meeting you. Take
You
care.
too, buddy. See ya.
All right, see ya.